You're listening to Scary Sleep Stories presents The Dark Hours.
Welcome, guys. I know a lot of you use these stories to fall asleep. So before you drift off like the video, subscribe if you're new, and comment what time it is right now. Let's see who's still awake and who's not alone tonight. Let's begin. Story 1. Whispers Beneath the Ice. The cold in the Arctic was unlike anything Dr. Lena Voss had ever known. It wasn't just a biting chill that nipped teeth and stung fingertips. It was a silence that pressed against the mind, a kind of frozen stillness that seeped beneath skins and into thoughts. The research station at Nordvik, perched precariously on a ledge of ancient ice, had been Lena's home for months, a place where sunlight vanished for weeks, replaced by endless shades of gray and the eerie quiet that accompanied the cold. Her team was small, chosen for their resilience and expertise. Jack, the grizzled geologist with a penchant for dry humor. Sita, the brilliant but reticent glaciologist. Jonas, the technician who kept generators sputtering and lights flickering. And Marcus, the doctor and unofficial counselor, whose calm had often diffused tensions beneath the pall of isolation. All was well, or as well as it ever was in the far north, until the ice began to groan. At first, the noises were faint, distant rumbles from deep beneath the glaciers. The monitors occasionally blinked with anomalous readings, shifting vibrations, unexplainable magnetic dips, but the phenomena were shrugged off as natural quirks of polar ice fields. The team continued their steady routine, drilling cores, logging data, and maintaining communications with the outside world. Then the power flickered. It was during the long twilight hours, a creeping dusk that never quite gave way tonight, that the generators hiccuped, lights dimmed, and a strange, low-frequency hum thrummed beneath their feet. Jack swore he felt the floor pulse not just beneath the station's foundation, but through the ice itself. Sita's readings showed something impossible. A massive void, an empty cavern opening slowly beneath Nordvik. What could hollow out this ice from below without us noticing? Lena asked, worry growing behind her practiced composure. The ice is ancient, dense, Sita explained, tuning instruments with shaking hands. But something's been carving through something huge and very old. One night, restless, Lena stood by the observation window, watching the endless white. The aurora shimmered above a dance of ghostly green and violet when suddenly the station shuddered hard, a deep crack snapping through the ice beyond. She heard it then, faint voices, like children whispering just beyond comprehension. She blinked, spun around. The common area was empty. The others were asleep, but the trembling continued, an uneven thudding from beneath the floorboards, and the whispers grew, echoing in the narrow hallways, twisting into unplaceable sounds, a language forgotten. Days passed with no explanation. The voices appeared only at night, fading with dawn but leaving unrest in their wake. Crew members began to dream of a great cold cavern beneath the ice, endless and dark, untouched since before human memory. Marcus noted growing anxiety and fractured sleep. Even Jack, who had once faced the crushing dark beneath glaciers, walked with a wary edge. Then Lena discovered the strange carved mark. While inspecting the east platform's access hatch, covered by thick frost, she uncovered grooves etched into the ice symbols almost too precise to be natural. They pulsed faintly with blue light, a glow that seemed to breathe beneath the frozen surface, spreading slowly, as if alive. Sita examined the carvings with reverence. This language, it's pre-human, calls to archaic patterns. Some kind of message meant for those who can see beyond. The station's radio crackled, unwilling to connect fully. A story fractured by distance, waves bending strangely. Then a message came through, not in normal speech, but a sequence of tones. Lena played the tones over speakers. The entire station's hull vibrated with faint unease. Suddenly, the hatch beneath the platform creaked open on its own, revealing a sulphurous mist rising from the yawning dark below. The ice beneath the station shifted, revealing a deep passage filled with a mist that smelled of earth and something ancient, untouched. Against better judgment, the team prepared to descend. Lena led the way, flashlight beams carving into the shadow. The air grew warmer as they went down, unnatural in this frozen wasteland. The walls glistened with crystalline formations too perfect to be natural, like ice and stone fused by something otherworldly. At the cavern's heart, they found a massive chamber, an enormous crystalline structure pulsing softly with light, suspended over a bottomless abyss. Strange glyphs, identical to those on the ice, shimmered on the cavern walls and on the surface of the great crystal. Voices rose again, clearer now, whispers not of words, but of sensations, memories, emotions older than the ice itself. The light flickered in patterns that suggested movement, shapes, the outlines of something vast and beyond human comprehension. Marcus refused to enter further. This isn't natural. Our minds might not survive what's here. Yet Lena felt a pull. She could not explain a deep resonance, a strange calling from this ancient entity beneath the ice. As days passed, the team's mental state deteriorated. Sita spoke to unseen figures during breaks. Jack disappeared for hours, wandering icy cliffs, returning with frozen tears on his beard. Jonas's hands trembled as he tried and failed to repair the main generator, which now hummed a discordant, otherworldly tune. Lena kept detailed logs, documenting the growing influence of the presence. Temporary power surges, dreams shared by all. A sense that the entity beneath the ice was aware of them, watching, waiting, beckoning. One night, Lena awoke to find the chamber aglow beyond perception, the light spilling like liquid through the snow outside the station. She felt herself drawn to it, slipping from her room towards the platform hatch. She descended alone, knowing this encounter was inevitable. At the crystal's side, Lena placed her palms on its smooth surface. A surge of images flooded her mind. An ancient world submerged beneath glaciers, civilizations lost to time, a consciousness once bound in ice, but now awakening. The entity spoke without words, feelings of sorrow, loneliness, timelessness. It had waited for centuries for someone to listen. It did not wish harm, but longed to reconnect. Its influence over the ice and earth was absolute. Lena's mind trembled with the weight of knowledge. The future of Nordvik, and perhaps the world, linked to this being's awakening. When she withdrew, the entity whispered a final warning. Balance must be maintained. Too much light, too much noise could shatter its fragile truce. Too much silence, and it might break free beyond control. The team sealed the hatch, turning the station's mission from extraction to containment. They vowed to guard the secret, help the ancient intelligence remain in peaceful slumber beneath the ice, while the world above hurried blindly onward. As the sun finally returned, hinting at the slow release from endless Arctic night, Lena stood by the window once more. The ice groaned softly. The crystal pulsed faintly beneath the surface, and somewhere beneath the frozen earth, a whisper carried on the wind, a whisper that had waited through time, a whisper that was glad to be heard. Story 2. The Haunting at Willowmire. The first time Caleb Ford laid eyes on Willowmire, he felt its history pressing against his skin. The centuries-old estate, crouched at the end of a winding gravel path and bordered by the sullen sweep of a black marsh, looked neither abandoned nor quite alive. Its windows reflected the dull winter sun, tall and dark as bruises, and its sagging roofline carved an uncertain silhouette against the bare trees. Caleb wasn't driven by belief in ghosts, legends, or hauntings. He was an historian with a skeptic's patience, sent by a preservation society to catalog the estate before it was lost to rot. All he wanted was quiet, time away from city noise and lingering memories of his divorce. Willowmire seemed perfect, disconnected, remote, secretive. But from the moment he stepped from his car, silence roared like a hidden storm. The air tasted of iron and wet leaves. Crows perched in every bough, motionless as sentinels. Just beyond the grounds, reeds rose in a mob from the swamp, their outlines wreathed in fog. The house itself seemed to lean forward, as if struggling to hear some distant voice returning through the years. Caleb's contract was simple. 2 months on site, digitally record architectural features and photograph every room. He was to stay in the master suite, once splendid, now warped by years of neglect. Day 1, he unpacked his camera gear, made coffee on a battered stove, and started work. For 3 days, he fell into routine measuring, dictating, snapping endless photographs as weak sunlight slid in blades through grimy glass. The place was a labyrinth. Narrow halls, shuttered studies, closets filled with antique clothes, still faintly scented with lavender and old dust. Night after night, Caleb collapsed into exhausted sleep, lulled by the wind tapping on the glass and the distant croak of marsh frogs. Then the noises began. At first, just a creak on the stair, the soft crush of footfall overhead when he was certain he was alone. Then voices thin as a breeze would slip beneath his door, tangled in words older than memory. He shrugged them off. "Old houses settle," he muttered, recording yet another ornate mantelpiece. The mind invents company. But as the days stretched, the noises grew bolder. Footsteps that paused just outside his room, soft laughter echoing from the fording, waterlogged ballroom, a chill breath on the back of his neck. When the sun dipped low, Caleb's sleep frayed. Dreams tumbled into waking hours, nonsense images of masked dancers sliding through moonlit corridors, children singing from the bottom of the marsh, a woman with silver eyes weaving her way through tangled halls. He found himself drawn to the library, a large room lined with warped black walnut shelves and a broken stained glass window. The air here always felt colder. Book spines peeled with age, titles lost beneath, scrawled annotations in a dozen hands. Every day, he returned, searching for a key to the estate's legends. That's where he found the first diary, tucked behind a collection of sermons. Its leather cover was stamped with a single word: Eleanor. Its pages, faded to sepia, hinted at terror entries charting the slow decay of a marriage, the growth of unnamed shadows, and confessions of seeing her own face in the window's midnight reflections. December 16th. The Marshes woke last night. I heard them moving. The watchers, the guests who never left. I count the days by candlelight, because clocks stop here, and no birds sing after dusk. The mirror in the green parlor will not show my face anymore. I miss my daughter. I fear she is with them. An entry later was just 2 words, hastily scratched. I'm sorry. Caleb put the diary aside. Rational explanations fled as each night pressed darker and stranger. His camera glitched, freezing over or capturing impossible images, a woman's silhouette in empty hallways, faces pressed behind filthy glass, fog lapping at the stairs. On the 7th night, Caleb awoke to water dripping in his room. The pipes, he guessed. He groped to the bathroom, flipping the switch. The reflection in the mirror blurred, then twisted the room, doubled and redoubled, and for a moment, a second face hovered behind his own. A voice, grainy as a record left in the sun, murmured, "You see us now. We want to come back." He dove into work the next day, desperate for distraction. The house, though, resisted doors stuck, stairwells closed behind him. Cryptic messages appeared in the dust on wainscoting. Linger, listen, leave. Down near the basement, he found a locked iron hatch bolted beneath a dead lamp. At night, it echoed with the sounds of scratching, as if something inside tried to count out the hours. Desperate for help, Caleb called the society's supervisor, leaving rambling voicemails about the estate's condition. The reception fizzed with static. The call a single time connected, but all he heard was distorted laughter and the slow, wet gurgle of water rising. Reality seems unraveled. Shadows no longer matched bodies. At the rear of the servants' corridor, a cracked portrait wept tears of brown water. 2 weeks in, Caleb began to see the guests. At dusk, in the mirror-dark ballroom, phantoms glided over rotten floors, men in evening wear, women in fading satin. Their faces flickered and turned, sometimes twisted in silent screams or lost in an ecstasy of old waltzes. Their feet left trails of frost on the boards. Once, he tried to speak. His voice echoed strangely, high and distant, and a dozen glassy eyes swung toward him, knowingly. The marsh pressed closer each morning. Fog crept in through broken window panes, bringing its own sense of mud and river rot. Once, during a storm, he saw figures moving just beyond the reeds, their pale hands raised in silent supplication, eyes glinting with a drowned kind of hunger. In the library, a new message appeared, scrawled in fresh ink on the desk. Return the names. We remain because we are forgotten. Caleb, shaken, dug through the diaries, searching for lists of tenants, family, servants. He read their stories, the children who vanished down by the mire, the maid lost to fever, the lovers who drowned, the old master who spoke with the dead in the moonlight. Gowden. For 3 days, He recited names as he wandered the house. With each, the air felt heavier, pressing closer. On the fourth day, the fog receded a little from the window, and for the first time, the crows on the branches sang. His own mind fractured between then and now. Some nights, he found himself standing outdoors, barefoot in the mud, staring at the black water as the voices chanted behind him. "Let us in. Let us come home." The house rattled with their wanting. The final week, the marsh itself came alive. Rotted hands pressed up from the murk at the bank, claws of black willow winding around ankles and fence posts. That night, the guests assembled in the grand hall, dozens, perhaps hundreds, shimmering, half real. The woman with silver eyes beckoned Caleb to the center, whispered in Eleanor's voice. "The house holds grief. It drinks the lonely. Set us free and leave before dawn." Caleb obeyed. He unlocked the iron hatch, heart thudding, and found beneath the basement a shallow well, cold and black, ringed with old bones and tattered ribbons. He knelt, reciting every name he discovered, each echoing into dark. The last, his own, tumbled out of his throat involuntarily. There was a moment of total silence. The fog withdrew. Above, laughter and music joyful, bright, flooded the halls as if the house itself sighed. Caleb staggered up to find the house changed. Windows clear, air sweet and thin, light flooding every corner. The guests smiling, made whole by their remembrance, faded gently into dawn, leaving a stillness utterly different from the haunted hush that came before. He packed his car, snapping one last photograph. In the rearview mirror, Willow Meyer looked merely old, no longer restless. Back in the city, Caleb sent the photograph to the society. In the image, a figure waved to him from the ballroom window, a woman with silver eyes, her mouth curved in thanks. Some spirits, he realized, remain only until heard, and Willow Meyer, at last, was silent. Story 3. The Lantern Man of Blackroot Fen. The Blackroot Fen was a place where the mist never quite lifted, even at noon. Tucked deep in the English fenlands, it was a realm of whispering reeds, sunken lanes, and tangled waterways black as oil. By day, the fen seemed a shimmering, fragile patchwork of wildflowers and reed beds dancing under slow breezes. But after dusk, the moment shadows gathered beneath a swollen moon, it became a realm of silence and old things. For the Mitchell family, moving to a small cottage on the fen's edge was a hope and a wager painting over loss with new beginnings. After years in London, where grief and noise clawed equally, Tom and Eliza Mitchell sought refuge here with their 2 daughters, Lily and Rose. The house was humble and overgrown, a faded relic framed by mossy walls and ancient oak trees. The village itself was small and close-knit, worlds away from the turmoil they left behind. The locals were kind but cautious. At the market and the pub, people smiled with folded hands and eyes that watched shadows. Elders exchanged glances when the Mitchells mentioned the fen. And then there were the stories, always told quietly and quickly, as if the words might stir things better left sleeping. "Eliza," said Mr. Craven, the village grocer, "if you see a lantern bobbing on the fen after dark, you do well not to follow." Tom laughed it off. But Eliza's smile was tight. One damp evening, Weeks after settling in, the first sighting came. Lily, 8 years old and restless, was out on the long porch when she called her mother inside with wide eyes. A light. It's down by the reeds, a little way off, a lantern glowing and flickering. Her voice trembled. Tom and Eliza exchanged a look, but joined her anyway. The stone path outside the cottage rolled into fog, the reeds whispering secrets in the dark. At the fen's edge, the air was cold and thick, carrying the scent of mud and old water. And, no one else was there? Tom asked quietly. Lily twirled her scarf. No, just the light. It moved like a little flame on water, like it was waiting. Eliza wrapped an arm around Lily and decided then to ask Mrs. Hargrove, the village's oldest resident, about the lantern man. In the flickering candlelight of a cozy cottage, Mrs. Hargrove's eyes glistened with the sheen of remembered darkness as she shared the tale. Long ago, she began, the fen was wild and cruel. Many a traveler lost their path and their lives in the quick mud and shadowed waters. The lantern man was said to be a spirit, a watcher, one who carried a lantern to guide the lost. Some say he saved the ones who listened. Others say he lured careless souls, tipping them into the marshes to join the muck. Eliza leaned forward. Is he real? Mrs. Hargrove smiled thinly. Real enough to keep your feet on dry ground after night falls. Over the following weeks, the Mitchells found themselves caught in the web of fen whispers and half-seen things. They heard footsteps where none should be and caught fleeting glimpses of a lone lantern's bobbing glow through fog and rain. Tom shrugged it off as rural superstition, a world away from the rational and modern. But Eliza grew restless. One night after the children slept, the lantern appeared again, distant and pale, drifting between the reeds like a sigh carried on the wind. Compelled by a mix of fear and need, Eliza walked toward it, her boots sinking softly into muddy earth. The lantern moved steadily, a measured pace, never quick but never stopping. The landscape altered subtly as she followed. A tangle of reeds opened to reveal jagged tree stumps wrapped in mist. The light pooled. Above smooth black water, Eliza heard the faintest chime like old bells ringing underwater. Before she could call out, the lantern halted and swung gently toward her, an invitation or a warning. From the shadows rose a figure, tall, thin, a cloak dripping with fen moss and water weeds, face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. The lantern swung in the figure's hand, its light spilling amber like spilled honey. "Why do you come?" The voice was low, as if carried through water. Eliza swallowed hard. To know, to understand what watches the fen. The figure stepped closer. "Many come," it whispered. "Most to take, few to listen." "You're the lantern man?" Eliza asked, voice barely a breath. The figure nodded, face cloaked in shadow, eyes flickering faintly with reflected flame. "Then why show yourself?" she pressed. "To remind." The figure's lantern swung again, casting light down a narrow path revealed beneath mist. There are places where the past breathes into the present, where grief waits in the reeds and old sorrows turn restless if we forget. Eliza peered down the path, wondering what choices might wait beyond. Back at the cottage, days later, strange things grew. The well water tasted of salt and moss. Lily and Rose dreamed of dancing lanterns floating far above black marshes. Tom's tools twisted strangely, overnight spoons bent, clocks slowed. Then the village children began to vanish, not all at once, but slipping away, one by one, their names whispered on the breeze. The adults would look grave, hands wringing. Eliza caught herself watching every shadow, every flicker of light beyond the windows. One fog-heavy night, Tom, armed with lanterns and determination, joined Eliza to search the fen. They called their daughters' names to empty reeds, unblinking mud patches, and the sickly water beneath rotten trees. Near dawn, at the heart of the fen, they found the old willow tree, the same one children had once carved initials into, now split and sodden. At its base, hidden in silt, lay a single carved wooden mask, stained by time and earth. Eliza recognized the craftsmanship. It was identical to those she'd seen in ancient village festivals. Masks worn to honor the fen's old spirits, passed out or forgotten. The masks were said to grant safe passage or curse those who dared wear them unbidden. Tom picked up the mask, feeling the heavy weight of something beyond the material. Then, from the mist, came the lantern man's whispered voice again. The fen asks a price, blood for passage, stories for silence. Exhausted and terrified, the couple carried the mask back to the village. They convinced the elders to hold a ceremony, bringing together the memories and old songs that once tethered the village to its land and past. The night of the ritual, lanterns dotted the fen like fireflies. The villagers sang and danced around the ancient willow stump. Masks were worn and passed in sacred procession. The fog swirled thick and alive, carrying voices of the missing children calling out, faint and distant. Suddenly, the flickering lanterns soared upward, coalescing into a great glowing orb above the fen. The lantern man, watching and waiting. The orb pulsed slowly, bathing the reeds in mellow light that chased shadows far away. The missing children's names rang in the air like a prayer. When dawn arrived, the fog lifted, as if lifted by an unseen hand. The water shimmered clean and calm. The village felt lighter, memory restored, burden eased. Lily and Rose returned, as if waking from a long dream, laughter spilling between reed beds. The village's eyes shone bright with relief and unspoken reverence. From that day, the lantern never vanished. It remained, a steady glow in marsh and mist, an eternal warning and guardian for those who knew the fen's secrets. Tom and Eliza stayed, rooted now as deeply as the reeds themselves. And each year, when autumn's fog began to crawl, they lit their own lanterns, part gratitude, part protection, because the Blackroot Fen was never empty, and the lantern man was always there, watching between the reeds, waiting for those who walked too close to forget. You've been listening to Scary Sleep Stories. May your dreams be calm and your night undisturbed.